Gaia is doing a youth exchange in Belgium. It's her first time in the country. Today, she is in Brussels and she is standing in front of the European Council.
What is that beautiful building? It looks like a giant cube.
This is the European Council, Gaia. And you're right, it is a giant cube. It has been designed by a modern architect. It's a place where heads of state of the EU member states meet. Currently, they are 27. But other people work there too, such as the representatives of other institutions. For example, you should not be surprised to meet the Commission President, the European Council President, or the High Representative of the Union of Foreign Affairs and Security Policy.
I didn't know that the heads of state all meet in Brussels. Why do they meet, by the way, and when?
Well, they have to decide on the overall direction and political priorities of the EU. They can also ask the Commission to address an issue, and they nominate the Commission President. They must meet at least twice a year, but they generally meet 3 to 4 times a year.
I see. And you mentioned the Commission. Can you tell me more about that institution?
Yes, of course. The European Commission is also an institution located in Brussels. Each person that works at the Commission is called Commissioner. Each member state sends one Commissioner, so that makes 27 in total. Each Commissioner has one policy field that he works on for 5 years. The Commission proposes new laws, enforces existing EU laws, manages EU funding and budget, and represents the EU on the international stage. Its main objective is to promote the general interest of the EU. It is also the only institution that can start the process of creating a new law.
Great! So that means Romania has a commissioner.
Yes, every country has one. Adina Ioana Volan is the Romanian commissioner, and she is responsible for the field of transport. Like every other new commissioner, she was approved by the European Parliament and Council. Now let's go to the EU Parliament. That is another institution in Brussels. Have you ever heard about it?
Yes, I think so. It has something to do with laws, right?
Yes, true. The Parliament passes EU laws and the EU budget, but it also supervises other institutions and has a key role in many decisions. It approves all members of the Commission and can kick out the entire Commission.
Wow! It has big responsibilities.
Yes, but there are also a lot of people working over there. Actually, there are 705, directly elected by all European citizens every 5 years. And they work by party groups. That means that they sit based on the membership in a party group and not by nationality.
This is very interesting. So we talked about the European Council that takes care of the overall direction and political priorities of the EU. You also told me that the Commission proposes new laws and that the Parliament modifies, passes, or rejects the laws. But is the Parliament the only institution that can decide about the laws?
You're asking a very good question. Let me tell you about one other institution, the Council of the European Union. You can also call it the Council of Ministers to make it easier. The members of this institution, called the Ministers, have to negotiate and adopt EU laws and the EU budget along with the Parliament. They also conclude international agreements. It is another institution that sits in Brussels. There are no fixed members working there. The national ministers for each policy area can take part in the discussions on an EU level. For example, economic and financial affairs or agriculture and fisheries. To agree on a decision, the Council uses a majority voting system. That means not all the ministers have to agree.
So, if I understand correctly, all of these 4 institutions depend on each other.
Yes, indeed. And one more important thing. It is very clearly defined in the EU treaties that if a policy field has not been assigned to the EU level, the EU institutions cannot take any action on that field. And the courts are here to make sure all the rules are respected. Do you know anything about these courts?
Not really. I just know that they are located in Luxembourg.
Very good. The highest court is called the Court of Justice. It interprets and enforces EU laws. It also has the power to penalize EU institutions and member states if they disrespect the rules. Then you have another court called General Court. In this court, individuals like you and me can sue EU institutions and member states can sue the Commission. It also decides on cases involving intellectual property. Together, these two courts make up the Court of Justice of the European Union.
Wow! The way the EU institutions work together seems complex. For example, imagine the European Council decides to focus on the happiness of its citizens and asks the Commission to work on that. Then, the Commission would decide to make chocolate free for everyone. Next, the Parliament and Council of Ministers would have to agree on the bill proposed by the Commission and vote in order to pass it or not. If the bill would pass, it becomes a law. If my country doesn't give me chocolate, I can go to the Court of Justice of the European Union, and they will check what my country is doing.
You got the main points, but of course, it is a really long process that can take several years.